What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IHE TV. Ow! Today I'm talking about the musical biopic Michael. Who's this? Michael Jackson it must be. Oops. So for some godforsaken reason, Bohemian Rhapsody nearly made $1 billion, and ever since this has been a clawing box office trend, just like superhero movies or any number of trends from back in the day. I don't know if they contractually have to, in part, be made by or be about sexual predators in some way, but who knows at this point. These movies they're just totally not for me. They're kind of the inverse of everything I'm looking for from what makes the medium, the art form of filmmaking interesting. Usually boiling down into these grotesque puff pieces that miss out all the complexities of the subject in question and kind of wind up feeling like big adverts for nostalgic moments or imagery or obviously songs that you already know, you already enjoy. A lot of the time they're straight adapting famous performances which you can watch on YouTube or already exist in your mind's eye somewhere anyway through osmosis. And it's not like I'm going into this from the starting point of it's a musical biopic, it has to be bad. In fact, I think Michael Jackson, as far as a subject for a character study type movie, there's a lot you could do there. There is obviously something deep and warped and kind of dark and interesting to explore there, which unfortunately clashes with the conceit of making a Michael Jackson movie that has all the legalities and the estate involved, and I think it's Michael Jackson's nephew is literally playing him. There was no way this was going to be a Tar level exploration of a pop star or something like that. Like, I would never anticipate that. From its very foundation, it's kind of not allowed to be artistic. Ironically, considering, so you want about the guy, his artistic output, his talent level was extraordinary. I grew up with his music. I don't really listen to it nowadays, but there really is no denying the quality of some of that music. I could feel the Member Berry nostalgia play as it was unfolding before me. It doesn't work on me at all at this point. I could feel the instincts in the back of my brain. The instinct to hunch forward and point at the screen and soy face and say, I remember that thing. They're recreating that thing I know. But this is a cursed project that really has nothing to say by design, because all it really needs to be, and all the execs putting this together knew exactly this, as long as it was safe and feel good and basically used the template of a Bohemian Rhapsody, with most of the actual structure of the film being a really standard, basic Wikipedia page translation, missing out all of the controversies that make him look bad in any way. The film isn't interested in Michael Jackson as an individual, as a person. He is a symbol. He might as well be a superhero the way he is treated in the movie. He might as well be Jesus, in fact. The amount of times they talk about in the dialogue, you're just gifted, you're different, you're special. And it's so kitschy and insincere and over the top that it almost kind of worked for me in a way that I remember in the early 2000s and the 90s when you see videos of Michael Jackson's house and his weird ranch and that tacky man-child aesthetic that he embraced. It's very much in line with what this movie is going for, in a way that I kind of found ironically funny. I got some hearty laughs from this bullshit. I've complained time and time again about these movies that are about creatives trying to visually display someone coming up with that eureka moment, which, just like in Bohemian Rhapsody, they do a bunch of times. And the movie's kind of just a repetition of the same type of scenes, just on repeat. I take this screenshot, for example, and it was more about the younger Jackson 5 kind of build-up and setting up the whole, oh, this kid, he's special. He's bringing a tear to my eye when I hear his voice. So yeah, there'll be a scene starts, Michael's in the booth, something's going a little bit wrong, it's not quite there, there's something loose or rough around the edges, but hold on, he's finding that groove. Someone in the background puts his arm up and says, wait, he's about to do it. And at this point, the song that he's singing is a song you already recognize, but it's stripped back, it's just his voice. But as he starts figuring it out, the full instrumentation comes in, people get glassy-eyed, start dancing and going, woo, yeah, baby, in the booth, and then it transitions into the real song over a montage of screaming fans and some kind of recognizable location. It's that, 4 or 5 times. This is him coming up with one of his pop hits, with all the post-it notes in the background. So then you get to that issue of, okay, you're not really creating a world of the film, you're trying to be fairly literal, leaving out all the controversial parts. But there's not a dreamlike tone, there's not a fun to any sort of maximalism to the way it's shot or lit or anything like that. It's very standard, we are recreating famous performances that you've seen on YouTube or whatever. So that's kind of all I'm thinking during the scenes where they are, to give respect where respect is due, they are recreating these scenes fairly well. The dance moves are good, and the imitation is good, but it's like a pointless pastiche. Because not only do the music videos and these recordings already exist, but the actual music videos and the actual original stuff is out there, so you're not enriching or adding something supplementary. It feels like you're existing in the same creative space but not doing any of it as well. So it kind of feels redundant or pointless. But I guess that is the calculated, artless positioning of a film like this, is that's exactly what it's trying to do. It doesn't need to do anything outside of those bounds of have a checklist of things you already know, twist reality in such a way where the godlike pop star status can be protected and maintained and left with this false sheen, with all of the morality of the movie kind of being put on the dad character, with any of the deeper human condition, family dynamics kind of being hand-waved or simplified, that can have touches of violence or discomfort but can't go above a certain threshold or inform anything outside of melodrama. Colman Domingo is good in the role. He's kind of chewing the scenery and hamming it up, but the setting of the story is so over-the-top and almost fairy tale-like anyway, that at least made the scenes with him entertaining. Jafar Jackson does an okay job with the physicality and doing an impression of the voice and stuff like that. However, he just doesn't have the material to make this an interesting portrayal of Michael, because, I mean, the story won't let him do any of the truly challenging stuff that would be required of an actor, which is just where more of that unintentional humor comes about, where to me it comes across as condescending, and it thinks you as an audience member are stupid to buy this fake-ass world that it's selling, that all of his stunted man-child behavior was just kind of cute and innocent, and there's nothing deeper to that, there's nothing more sinister about that. So when you have all these scenes of Michael interacting with all these kids, like in the hospital or in toy shops, talking about video games, which they're obviously trying to show his sympathetic side, how he's been robbed of this honest childhood and he's doing everything to stay in that zone or relive it or capture something that he missed or was robbed from him. But everything serious like that is always played for gags, with the introduction of Bubbles, the really bad CG monkey that had me laughing. All of the animal stuff that's played for gags, whereas a lot of it to me just came across as quite sad and creepy. And you can see in this frame actually, I think he's reading Peter Pan, but either way, he's reading Peter Pan a lot through the film, kind of reinforcing that idea that he's stuck in this childlike state and being like a weird member berry. Oh, I know that's where he got the idea for his ranch. Yeah, everything was totally above board at the ranch. Yep, just kept catching me off guard with these bizarre decisions, like when Miles Teller shows up, who's playing this guy, John Branca, who's like a entertainment lawyer, who's like directly involved in the movie somehow. Yeah, he was like a producer on the movie. Yeah, have me in the movie and have me played by Miles Teller and have me have awesome hair and look like Trent Reznor. I was laughing when Mike Myers shows up as someone for a bit, because all these movies have to have the greasy exec scene, where in this case it's Mike Myers, Michael Jackson comes in and is like, put my music video on MTV. And he's like, well, you're not white, so we can't do that. You gotta have a little bit of the racial dynamics at play. The whole sequence of him seeing the gang violence on TV and it inspiring him. But that never really has like a conclusion or build-up or payoff. It's just kind of, oh, this thing inspired him because it was on the news. Well, doesn't this make him look like a victim or innocent or playful and cute and childlike and friendly and innocent? As films or narratives, I find these films extremely boring from the sense of the obvious fact that you know everything that happens. Like, you know, when it's someone as famous as this, everything about them, pretty much. So it's not like the actual story can surprise you or show you something you don't already know, but I guess this is exactly why they do it this way, is because they want it to be unchallenging. They want it to be a string of recognizable songs and moments where the built-in brand, the franchise, the symbol that is Michael Jackson is big enough. Where why would they even take a risk with the movie? Why would they make an interesting movie when they know the catalog, the advertising, there's all these moneyed interests involved that are petrified of hurting this brand in any way? So of course their prerogative is to maintain this monolith status. He's not a human being in the movie. He is like this weird static comic book character that can't really change. He's like a caricature of himself. Kind of a fall from grace to go from Training Day all the way to this. I'm referencing the director. There are some stories about the more interesting versions that were reshot and cut that I'll get into in a second, but first I want to wrap up this review. Despite this being over 2 hours long, I found it mindlessly entertaining and kind of funny and absurd enough. I was kind of drifting off for the last maybe 20 minutes or so, but it's pretty good considering how these normally hit me. And I couldn't help but feeling a little bit relieved that they're finally running out of notable pop stars to do this with. Like, once the 4 Beatles movies come out on the same day, like, we are running out of people famous enough to do this with now that we don't have this kind of monoculture thing that we had during Elvis, Michael Jackson, the Beatles, so on. I guess in the least flattering way possible, there's a serviceable execution to it. There's no filmmaking that stands out to me in any noticeable way. There are some bad sequences for sure, but there was nothing quite as bad as some of the editing in Bohemian Rhapsody, which, may I remind you, did win the best Oscar for its editing, so that's why that stands in my head for being so egregious. Yeah, so just embellished to aid a boring puff piece instead of any real storytelling or using the medium to its advantage. A boring protagonist. He's presented as having no real flaws as a person, apart from just being a bit kooky, but innocent, am I right, guys? With all these performances being so well documented, and while they're like good in the movie, they're never as good as the original, so there's no meaningful artistic contribution that this film has to make in any way. And the truth is, I know that if I got the movie I wanted, there's no way in hell it would in one weekend be making this kind of money. So that's why they do it. Like, Better Man came out and was genuinely an awesome, weird, bizarre take on a musical biopic that I think would work even if you don't care about Robbie Williams. It was weird they even invested this much into this movie, but damn, it came together and has some amazing filmmaking in it, like just to a degree that is confusing. Like, why they'd invest so much into this. But guess what happened when they made a weird, creative, different musical biopic? It fucking bombed and no one gave a shit about it. If you want some real movies based on some of the concepts that this film maybe should have gone for, you got like a Tar. Amadeus is a great one. Behind the Candelabra is a nice character study too. It can be done, but they can never be Michael. But they'll never be as successful and liked as Michael, which the audiences seem to be lapping up. They're loving it, surprising no one. So I guess my score for this would be a reluctant 1.5 stars with a like. I guess the like because of the amount of times I laughed at this. So I could picture a world where I watch this again to make fun of it. Especially with, like, I didn't put a spoiler warning or anything because it is just his Wikipedia page without any of the really crazy stuff. But there were rumors that the film was going to end on a cliffhanger or not fully wrap up, and those rumors are true. It does end extremely abruptly and awkwardly in a way that made me laugh out loud, where just text pops onto the screen, it flies at you saying his story continues. And then the credits start. So maybe all the good stuff will be in part 2, in Jackson. Which I'm fascinated to see like how they're going to puff piece that stuff, because this film ends in, I think, 88, and stuff really escalates with him in the 90s. So that's a fun little challenge for them if they want to keep making that money. But yeah, absolute shit, anti-art, but also not surprising that it's making the money that it is. And I wrap this video up with this article from Variety talking about this reshoot stuff, removing the child abuse allegations, yada yada. So let's go through this quickly. In the original script, the King of Pop stares at his reflection in the mirror, capturing his sorrowful gaze as police car lights flash behind him. It's 1993, a decade after Thriller gripped the culture and Jackson has just been accused of child molestation. But the sequence with investigators who arrive at Netherland Ranch to search for evidence is one of many that were left on the cutting room floor. Michael, which Lionsgate will release in the United States on April 24th, was supposed to explore the impact of the allegations on Jackson's life, with much of its third act devoted to the scandal, but the finale was scrapped, along with any mention of the child molestation accusations, according to sources with knowledge of the production. That's after attorneys for the Jackson estate, which served as a producer, realized there was a clause in a settlement with one of the singer's accusers, Jordan Chandler, that barred the depiction or mention of him in any movie. After the late-stage discovery, filmmakers went back to the drawing board to come up with a new ending. The process was further delayed after the house of screenwriter John Logan was damaged in the Palisades fire. Last June, the cast reassembled for 22 days of additional photography to shoot the new third act and fleshed out scenes from earlier in the movie. Production, which had primarily taken place in Santa Barbara, restarted in LA but didn't qualify for state tax rebates. That added $10 to $15 million to the budget, according to sources with knowledge of similar projects. The Jackson estate shouldered those costs because its error necessitated the changes, insiders say. Because it was willing to foot that bill, the estate has an equity stake in the film, according to another individual with knowledge of the production. Funny that. Now, instead of concluding with one of the most ignominious moments in Jackson's career, you just had to whip out ignominious for that, didn't you? Dickheads. Michael will end with the pop star still at his zenith. The last scene is set during Jackson's Bad tour, following him as he prepares to take the stage for another electrifying performance. According to a source who has seen the finished film, indeed, the movie leans heavily into Jackson's music. Surprise, surprise. Wow. Featuring one showstopper after another. And away from his sometimes bizarre personal behavior, Michael does include a sweet moment where Jackson buys toys for kids in the hospital. A scene which, to me, all of the intended emotions hit in an unintended way. Weird ass scene. In the new version, the dramatic tension comes from the singer's relationship with his domineering father, Joe Jackson, who who doesn't want his son's solo career to come at the expense of the Jackson 5, the Motown group that put the family on the map, blah blah blah. Jackson's attorney, John Branca, and the estate senior executive Karen Langford were consulted on production decisions, and the pop star's son, Prince, who served as executive producer, was a daily presence on set. The artist's 2 other children had no involvement. Though Jackson is one of the most popular musicians in history, he remains a controversial figure. His estate is aware of the shadow cast by the multiple child abuse allegations against the singer. According to knowledgeable executives, Jackson always asserted his innocence. However, the estate was encouraged by the global success of the jukebox musical MJ, which opened on Broadway in 2022 and embarked on a national tour in 2023. The show, which pointedly ends just before the 1993 allegations break, gave Jackson's team confidence the public would be willing to embrace a sympathetic look at him. It's one of the only 4 new musicals since the pandemic that's still running, and it has grossed over $300 million at the Broadway box office. The estate also considered the popularity of the Cirque du Soleil show 1 and the 2009 concert film This Is It. Follow the money, gotta protect the money, that's all that ever matters, is protecting that fucking money, that fucking brand. Because the original cut was more than 3.5 hours, King hopes to turn Michael into a 2-part story. Yeah, they all want that. Lionsgate and Universal, which is overseeing international distribution, believes there's enough material for at least 1 more movie. The studio suggests roughly 30% of the material that was jettisoned from Michael could be reconstituted for potential sequels. It's unclear how future films would handle the legal battles and abuse allegations that consumed much of Jackson's final years. King has told the studios he would focus on the singer's later albums, including 91's Dangerous and 2001's Invincible, the purchase and construction of Neverland Ranch, as well as his love of animals. How do you cover any of that without just like bringing up the main sticking point? The main piece of drama. You know, there's the whole dangling his child out the window and all sorts of stuff. Those discussions may soon heat up. Early tracking suggests Michael will open to more than $55 million at the box office, which would be above 2018's smash hit Bohemian Rhapsody. Wow. Goddamn. And that was pre-pandemic too. Initial ticket sales could climb even higher as the release date nears. Direct comparisons are tough because Bohemian Rhapsody, which ended up earning a massive $910 million worldwide, was released before the pandemic. And post-COVID musical biopics like A Complete Unknown, Yawn, and Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, Yawn, with smaller scale productions. Wow. That is telling and obvious. And the only thing that kind of leaves me intrigued is what they're going to do. They're going to want more money, right? They always want more money. They have all this material. They end it on that cliffhanger. What could you possibly do for 2 more hours without bringing up the personal drama? Like, I'm fascinated to see how they're going to tackle that one. But yeah, piece of shit. Going to be one of the biggest films of the year. Let me know your thoughts on Michael, the movie, and or the person. I don't care. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!